Hello, I am Linda C. McCabe, author of Quest of the Warrior Maiden and Fate of the Saracen Knight. I'm going to start making short videos reading chapters from my novel using classic illustrations. Quest of the Warrior Maiden by Linda C. McCabe. Part 1, Love, War, and Faith. Chapter 1, Summer Solstice in the year 802. A low moan emanated from a pile of corpses on the battlefield. Ruggiero turned in the direction of the sound. Did someone call my name? The opposing army had fled, leaving a bloodied plain covered with dead bodies as far as the eye could see. The knights he was riding with were the last group of soldiers who had not yet returned to camp. His friend Danafort had smears of blood on his face and was regaling the others about his various kills earlier in the day. No one else appeared to have heard the sound that bothered Ruggiero. His victorious flush evaporated as he realized his guardian was not among the riders. When had his mentor left his side? Danafort, have you seen Atala? Was it my turn to watch the old sorcerer? Watch out, Danafort, or Atala will send a djinn your way, said another knight. This is no matter for jest. He could be dead or injured. Ruggiero's face burned. Atala was a mystic and not a sorcerer, but this was not the time to quibble over the difference. The surgeons will be out soon. It is their job to care for the wounded. Danafort cocked his head toward the city towers bearing plumes of billowing black smoke. The sacking of Toulouse has already begun. Tonight we shall take you on your first pillage. Fame and glory are won on the battlefield, but a warrior, such as yourself, will only amass wealth through plundering. Ruggiero hated the reminder of his poverty. He was riding alongside wealthy governors and powerful nobles, yet his only valuables were his weapon, armor, sword, and horse, which had all been given to him. He had no lands or title and needed to acquire goods in order to support himself, lest he continue depending upon his guardian to provide for him. The sound of two vultures fighting over a corpse brought him to his senses. No, said Ruggiero. I owe it to Atala to find and help him if I can, or save his body from desecration. Danafort shrugged. If he died, means more for me in the looting. Take my share as well. I would rather miss out on a few trinkets than spend the rest of my life regretting what I might have done for a loyal friend. Enjoy yourself, looking at the dead, another knight called out. We shall amuse ourselves with Frankish maids instead. They galloped off. Ruggiero turned his attention to the search for his guardian, while their laughter rang in his ears. Atala, he called out. In the midst of the plain stood a large oak tree whose shade had offered the only reprieve that day from the hot summer sun. He remembered the landmark, for he had fought the famous Frankish warrior Orlando near the tree. Orlando had ducked to avoid hitting his head on one of the lower branches. Ruggiero recognized the warrior from the shield he bore with red and white quartering. The day's battle had been so intense that the white portions of Orlando's shield were hard to see under splatters of blood. Atala had shouted, "Do not advance against Orlando!" But avoiding a fight was not within Ruggiero. Their duel had been fierce and short-lived. For some unknown reason, Orlando broke off and galloped away, as if the paladin had responded to a command only he could hear. Ruggiero urged his horse Frontino to walk toward the massive oak, taking care to avoid stepping on any scattered limbs in their path. He repeated his guardian's name while making his way across a tableau of death. In the morning, the plain had been a wheat field, but now the only harvest would be weapons, armor, and valuables from the dead. Thousands of bodies were scattered about, and severed heads dotted the ground in grotesque patterns. An oppressive calm hung in the air, intensifying Ruggiero's feeling of dread. His spirits were lifted somewhat when he did not see any sign of Atala near the tree. Then the ominous sound that drew him on the search rose again. Ruggiero turned and urged his horse toward it. As he came near the source, he realized that it was a dying man's incoherent murmurs. The fallen man's legs were broken and splayed at awkward angles. Ruggiero was uncertain if he was an enemy or a comrade in arms, for there are no signifiers of his allegiance. The man wore a simple coat of mail and had lost his helmet and shield. Ruggiero felt this very anonymity gave him an air of dignity, as he represented all warriors brave enough to sacrifice their lives for a cause greater than themselves. He made a move to dismount when the man pointed a finger at him. There was a look in his eyes that made Ruggiero remain on horseback. He was unsure if the gesture was a silent accusation or a signal of the man's desire for forgiveness of sins. Maybe it was a longing for compassion before death. Was I the one who did this to him? Ruggiero had no idea, for the day had been a blur of blood and carnage. He had quickly lost count of the number of men he had felled with his sword since joining the war a week before. Slashing his way through throngs of men, he never paid attention to the destruction caused by his blade. This man could have been one of them. The man's lips twitched into a smile as his chest fell, never to rise again, and his eyes took on the vacant, glassy stare of the dead. Ruggiero closed his own eyes as the reality of war crystallized for him. It bore no resemblance to the tales of glory sung by poets. Atala had warned him about the world of men and war, but Ruggiero had clung tenaciously to the idealized images wrought by Homer and Virgil. He was saddened to see that his mentor was right, yet again. A funeral would be performed for the dead later, but Ruggiero felt the need to mark the passing of this man's soul into the afterlife. Turning in the direction of Mecca, he bowed his head and tried remembering what he could of the Salat al-Janazah. The imams led those prayers. He had said responses with the other warriors, but never had a reason to give such a prayer before. Allahu Akbar! Forgive me for not being cleansed for prayer and for not knowing the proper words. I seek your blessing for the soul of this man and for the souls of all those who died in battle today. All men belong to you, and upon their deaths will return to you. May they be cleansed of all their sins and be permitted to walk in your glory. His throat tightened, and he paused before continuing. Allah, I ask that you keep Atala safe and bring me once again to his side. Amen. As he lifted his head, he noticed a new smell in the air. It was different from the mixture of blood, sweat, and stale urine from the battlefield. The aroma of roasting mutton made his stomach rumble with hunger. This day marked the joining of Emir Akramon's armies with the advanced forces, bringing about their first major victory in the war against the Franks. Ruggiero smiled as he imagined this celebration awaiting him in the royal tent. The emir treated him not as a neophyte knight, but as a valued member of his inner circle of advisors. Perhaps Atala was there already, and this search was all in vain. After all, Ruggiero reminded himself, Sufi mystics are harder to kill than ordinary men. Ruggiero was ready to return to camp when he heard the clinking sound of a sword fight. In the distance, two mounted warriors were engaged in combat. Why are they still fighting? The battle is over. Upon approaching them, he did not recognize either combatant, but it was clear that neither was Atala. He waited to hail them until there was a pause in their fighting. As one warrior turned his horse to charge at his opponent, Ruggiero called out, "If one of you is a Christian knight, bear that you hear me out. Charlemagne has fled, taking his forces with him. If you wish to follow your emperor, make haste, lest you be left behind." The warrior, bearing a shield and plume olive white, said in a youthful, muffled voice, "Please, sir, allow me to follow my sovereign. If I am to die today, I would rather it be with him." "The answer to your request is no," the opposing warrior said. "I was about to kill Orlando when you interfered. I shall not quit this duel until one of us is dead. You wish to leave now? You must kill me first." As that man turned, Ruggiero saw a banner hanging limply on the back of his horse. It was a scarlet flag with a lion rampant, and guarded the face of a beautiful woman. Ruggiero then realized who this man likely was, as well as his notorious reputation. We fought valiantly today," said Ruggiero, "but the battle is over. Let this man withdraw so he may return to his forces. That is the way of the knight." Ruggiero turned his attention to the Christian warrior and gestured toward the horizon. "They left yonder in full retreat. If you leave now, you might catch them before darkness falls. Since this man still desires an opponent, I shall take your place." The knight gave him a gracious bow and galloped away. "Are you a bastard son of a swineherd?" said the remaining warrior. "Do you not know who I am?" Ruggiero fought back the anger rising inside of him as he remembered the words of his mentor. Anger unbalances and kills faster than swords. He struggled to keep his face impassive as he looked the scowling commander directly in the eye. "We have not met before, but by your dragon hide armor and your standard, I believe you must be Governor Bradamante of Saracen." The man's eyes narrowed. "You knew me, and yet you dared question my honor? You shall pay for this insult. Give me your name, so that I may tell Emir Akramant, who was foolish enough to die for a Christian soldier out of a misplaced idea about chivalry." "I am Ruggiero Tazim." Bradamante laughed, a mirthless laugh rooted in malice. "Do you expect me to bow down to you, kiss your noble feet? I am legend, while you are merely a child. My forces began this invasion months ago, while Akramant dithered in the Maghreb. I will not stand for you, of all people, trying to teach me manners. Instead, you shall be taught the last lesson of your charmed, short life." Ruggiero was surprised at the intensity of Bradamant's reaction. He forced himself to breathe evenly and not respond to the insults clearly intended to provoke him. Bradamante brandished his sword. "There is no place for mercy on the battlefield. To show mercy is to be weak, and I despise weakness in all its forms." "I cannot question your honor," said Ruggiero, "because you have none." "You disrespectful little whelp!" Ruggiero raised his sword and gripped his shield as Rhodamante's horse charged at him. Their swords clashed in midair, echoing the two warriors' tempers. If you enjoyed this presentation, I invite you to discover my novels, Quest of the Warrior Maiden and Fate of the Saracen Knight, epic historic fantasies set in the time of Charlemagne. They are available in ebook and trade paperback. Signed copies are available from the wonderful independent bookstore Kazoo Books in Kalamazoo, Michigan. You can find them online at kazoobooks.com. You can also visit my website at www.lindacmccabe.com or at www.questofthewarriormaiden.com and join my mailing list. If you have any suggestions as to how to improve the formats for these videos of my novels, please leave them in the comments section below. Thank you.